The deal was kind of in the works, and James Harden knew that. But if you're just catching up and hearing it for the first time, this specifically is what Harden said last night after getting blown out by the Lakers that caused ripples.
We're just not good enough. We don't obviously chemistry, talent-wise, just everything. And it was clear. I love this city. I literally have done everything that I can. I mean, this situation is crazy. It's something that I don't think can be fixed. So, yeah.
In my 11 years being in the league, I've been on a team like that my first 5 years where it was all about me, not about the team. And that hurts. And it brings everybody down. So when we can get all on the same page, we can be something good here. And we can't dwell down on it because it's only been 9 games. Like, come on, man. You want to jump off the cliff off of 9 games? There's a lot of basketball still to be played.
John Wall and James Harden last night. For much more, let's bring in Stephen A. Smith. You're the first person I thought of when I heard about this trade. Your reaction to this blockbuster move?
Well, first of all, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's finals or bust. You assemble Lethal Weapon 3, which is what we could easily call them right now. There's simply no excuse not to come out of the East and advance to the NBA Finals. There really is not an excuse. James Harden's getting paid $40 million this year. Kevin Durant's getting paid $39. Kyrie Irving is somewhere we don't know at an undisclosed location doing whatever it is that he does, but still getting $33.4 million this season. In the end, what it comes down to is that all of these brothers are big-time basketball players. This is Kevin Durant's franchise. James Harden would not be there unless Kevin Durant wanted him to be there. It's definitely a security blanket in case things continue to fall in the wrong direction as it pertains to Kyrie Irving. It's going to come down with James Harden and Kevin Durant. And let me be very, very clear. We can sit up there and we can talk about James Harden all we want to. The man has averaged over 30 the last 3 years, at least 29 the last 4 years, at least 28 the last 5 years. He is one of the most prolific scorers this game of basketball has ever seen. And more importantly than that, he loves to play the game of basketball. He doesn't engage in load management. He believes in showing up. You can worry about a few things all you want to about James Harden, but the one thing you do not have to worry about is him showing up to play the game of basketball because he wants to play. He wanted to play with Kevin Durant, at least until this morning after all of this Kyrie news percolated. Then Philadelphia was obviously an option with Daryl Morey, his former president of basketball operations in Philly, along with Doc Rivers, the head coach there now. But everybody that knows anything about the NBA right now knew that Tillman Fertitta, the owner for the Houston Rockets, would never allow James Harden to end up in Philadelphia with Daryl Morey. They end up going to the finals. His former star, his former president of basketball operations. Folks in the NBA community firmly believe Philadelphia was never going to be an option no matter what James Harden wanted. But obviously, he wants and loves the idea of playing with Kevin Durant.
So the Rockets get a boatload of picks here. You mentioned the Nets and you think it's championship or bust. What advice would you give Steve Nash? First-time head coach Steve Nash now guiding this team with these stars.
Embrace James Harden and Kevin Durant and let Kyrie Irving figure it out. You can't trust Kyrie Irving right now. It's just that simple. We're not questioning his greatness as a basketball player, his box office appeal, where his heart is at because it's in the right place. But clearly at this particular moment in time, basketball is not the priority it needs to be. And if you're Steve Nash coaching on any level for the first time in your career, you do not need to be concerned about what he's going to do, when he's going to do it, how he's going to do it, etc. You know you can trust Kevin Durant to show up and play ball if he's healthy. You know you can trust James Harden to show up and play basketball for this franchise if he's healthy. You focus on that and the other parts that you have, and if Kyrie Irving wants to come back, when he wants to come back, put the onus on him to fit in. That's what you do if you're Steve Nash at this particular moment in time, because Kyrie Irving has already shown you you're not the priority you need to be. So why make him one?
All right, we're coming back with much more from Stephen A. later on this program. Also, top of the hour, it's your show, SportsCenter. Looking forward to that. We're looking at Houston's lineup.
2019, but was limited to 20 games in his first season. Last season, this offseason also included a media boycott where he said, quote, "My play will speak for itself." And again, he has missed quite a few games already this young season. During the preseason, this is Kyrie seen burning sage on the court at TD Garden during warm-ups. He said he plans to burn sage before every game to honor his Native American heritage. Now he's currently away from the Nets because of, quote, personal reasons, missing 5 straight, including tonight. He could miss more time as the league reviews videos of a maskless Kyrie Irving at what appears to be a family birthday party that was going around on social media. Everybody saw that, including the NBA, so we'll see what they decide to do with it if he did indeed break protocol. Stephen A. Smith back with us live on SportsCenter. And Stephen A., earlier today on First Take, you flat out said you thought Kyrie Irving should retire. A few hours later, the news breaks. Harden goes to Brooklyn, teaming up with Kyrie and Kevin. We presume Kyrie. What do you think about Kyrie's situation now? What should he do?
I think he's very, very vulnerable. I think his career is in jeopardy because when you go away for personal reasons and you don't highlight and illuminate what those reasons are, and the team is wondering about you, and you left your boy hanging, Kevin Durant, you left your other teammates hanging, you left new coach Steve Nash hanging, you left Sean Marks, the general manager, hanging. This is one of the reasons why there was the urgency to go out and get James Harden the way that he did in a roundabout way. You can argue that Kyrie Irving is directly responsible for James Harden arriving in Brooklyn, which may be a very, very great thing for the Brooklyn Nets, because when Kyrie ends up so unpredictable and therefore giving you just thoughts of untrustworthiness and things of that nature, then you've got to have a security blanket for Kevin Durant. I would remind you that Kevin Durant tore his Achilles a year and a half ago in the NBA Finals. 18 months before he played the basketball game, still getting his legs under him, and is still averaging 29 a game on 54% shooting. This brother shows up, and he shows up to handle his responsibility. And for some reason, Kyrie Irving can't seem to understand that you can chew and you can chew gum and walk at the same time. If you got other issues on your mind other than basketball, you can handle your responsibilities that you get paid in excess of $33 million for and still do those other things. But it appears to be a challenge for him right now, and that is why I said on national television this morning he should retire. I said it then, I'm saying it now. I mean it with every bone in my body, every fiber of my being, because unless you are committed to doing your job and playing the game of basketball, and why should you be paid to do something that you're not doing?
Absolutely. We just saw a video side by side with you of Kevin Durant warming up as the Nets get set to take on the Knicks tonight, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. And again, we saw Kevin Durant, we saw Kyrie Irving a little bit together preseason, beginning of the regular season. There's so much hope if they do indeed decide to play.
Welcome in the man, the ultimate NBA insider who broke this story with our own Ramona Shelburne, the one and only Adrian Wojnarowski. Woj, how did this trade happen so quickly? Break this down for us.
Stephen, over the last few days, these talks started to gain some momentum, and ultimately, Brooklyn and Philadelphia were the two teams who were willing to kind of go the distance in putting packages together to try to get a player of James Harden's caliber. Those talks went through last night into this morning, and then this afternoon, really once Houston found a fourth team in the deal, Indiana, to move Karis LeVert for Victor Oladipo, there was a trade in place, and this is what Brooklyn wanted to do all along. Find a third star for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. They did it. They did it at a steep price, but they've landed James Harden.
Woj, how long had this been percolating? We've been hearing about this for quite some time, that James Harden obviously wanted to end up in Brooklyn, but then we were hearing Philadelphia, and then you take into consideration Kyrie Irving and what's been going on. Woj, thanks, but I got bad news for you. After all the work you put in, you can't go anywhere. I need you again. I'll be back to you shortly. Don't go anywhere. Lots of stuff to still get into. Listen, it was a mix of good and bad for James Harden in Houston. He won several awards, including the 2018 MVP and 3 consecutive scoring titles. First player to do that since Kevin Durant almost a decade ago. But the Rockets did not have much success in the playoffs despite making the postseason in every season. They only reached the conference finals twice, falling short of the finals both times. Possibly the highlight of Harden's time in Houston, though, came during the 2017-18 season when he recorded at least 30 points in 32 straight games. That is the second longest streak of all time behind the one and only Wilt Chamberlain. However, in his last 4 games, they were the lowest in his time in Houston. Harden failed to score more than 20 points in 4 consecutive games, his longest streak as a member of the Houston Rockets. We now welcome in the wonderful Doris Burke, who will call the Nets and Knicks game tonight on ESPN. Reaction to the trade, Doris, what are your thoughts?
I had 2 very quick thoughts in succession. The first one was a championship-level team with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant enhance their championship possibilities. You don't add one of the great scorers ever in the history of the league. You just went through all the accomplishments of James Harden and not raise your window as a championship organization. It's just too dangerous on the offensive end. My second one, Stephen, was this isn't without its challenges. Number one, on the defensive end, you've got some issues. You trade away your rim protector, a guy who did a tremendous job at the rim for you, and Jared Allen. But also, Kevin Durant has proven he can play alongside another MVP in Steph Curry, an elite two-way player in Klay Thompson, and still rise to the top of that group, two-time Finals MVP. What we don't know, Kyrie Irving bristled alongside LeBron James when he played with him. James Harden's a guy who has had trouble getting along with Chris Paul, now Russell Westbrook. It didn't work. Those two guys need the ball. So how this all meshes in a compressed schedule with very little practice time remains to be seen. Is it doable? Yes, because all three are great players, but it's not without its challenges.
Doris, in Boston in 2008, you had Ray Allen as a third option. That was an adjustment, but he handled it. They won a title. Chris Bosh was a third option in Miami. They won 2 titles in 4 years. Of course, you had Klay Thompson in Golden State. They won 3 titles in 5 years. Who's going to be the third option in this trifecta? And more importantly, who will be receptive to it, if anybody at all?
That's a great question. And obviously, Kevin Durant, think about what he does the other night. You're down 18. There's turmoil surrounding your entire roster. You needed a win desperately. I mean, Steve Nash said it was good for our soul. That's how the feeling was around this group with all the Kyrie uncertainty. So, you want him to shine. And again, I go back to the point, Kyrie Irving and James Harden have proven at their best they need the basketball in their hands. And even watching the brief repetitions with Kyrie and Kevin Durant, it's like one has the ball for a stretch of time and then the other has the ball for the stretch of time. The honest answer to that question is, I don't know. And it's why a collection of talent doesn't always translate to championships. How this meshes, what Steve Nash has in front of him is a unique and interesting challenge.
Always love talking to you, Doris. Thank you so much, and have a good time calling that game tonight between the Knicks and the Nets. Thank you so much. Oh, I've been waiting to talk to this next guest right here. Our NBA analyst, champion with the Boston Celtics, the one and only Kendrick Perkins. Your reaction to this deal, do you feel it's a good thing for the Brooklyn Nets?
Stephen A., surprisingly, I don't. And here's why. Yes, you have all the offensive power in the world, but guess what? Defense wins championships. And you can't tell me a last NBA championship team in the last 5 years that wasn't top 5 defensively. And I'm looking at this roster and I'm saying, who in the hell is going to guard? Who's going to guard Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown? Who's going to guard Joel Embiid? You need people out there that's going to defend at a high level. And when I'm looking at this Brooklyn Nets team and what they did, I strongly believe that they dropped the ball by getting rid of Jared Allen. He was their rim protector. He was their lob threat. He anchored the defense. So right now, one word comes to mind, Stephen A., on the offensive end: sacrifice. Who is going to sacrifice? Everyone can't have the basketball. There's only one of them.
I'll be back to you in a few, Kendrick Perkins. Don't you go anywhere. I need to get back to Woj for a second here because another part of this blockbuster deal needs to be discussed. That's Victor Oladipo going to Houston and Karis LeVert going to Indiana. What's the thought behind this part of the deal, Woj?
Well, I think for Indiana, it was a chance to get a very good young player in Karis LeVert, who's on a good contract, who I think really fits in there with Malcolm Brogdon and Domantas Sabonis, Miles Turner. It's a good playoff team. And in Indiana, clearly there was not a future. That partnership had really been frayed between Victor Oladipo and the Pacers. And, they were ready to move on from each other. And now Houston has a chance to either take a look at Victor. Do they want to re-sign him? He'll be a free agent in the offseason. They could move him again, though, before the trade deadline. So they have some options in Houston with Oladipo.
Woj, appreciate the great work as always, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.
The Rockets are going to look a little different now with James Harden in Brooklyn. John Wall is still a point guard and will have Victor Oladipo right by his side. Christian Wood will lead the front court and DeMarcus Cousins.
Well, remember, at this point, I'm seeing Knicks fans, Nets fans, New York fans saying, well, Kyrie's going to come back now, right? Because they got James Harden. Slow down. Remember that this is no longer a decision for Kyrie Irving. It isn't even a decision for the Nets because it is in the hands of the league at this point, Stephen A. The league is reviewing to see whether or not COVID protocols, their health and safety protocols, were broken. If they deem that they were in those videos that were circulating at a family birthday party, then he could face a quarantine, and that would further delay his return to the court, which we know he is out, sources have told Adrian Wojnarowski and myself, until at least Saturday.
Malika Andrews, live from the Nets game tonight. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much. Let's transition back to the one and only Kendrick Perkins. Now, Kendrick Perkins, you spoke about the Brooklyn Nets. You asked about where's the defense. That doesn't appear to be a concern you have when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers, who, if I remember correctly, you're predicting is coming out of the East. What about the fact that they didn't end up getting Harden when clearly they at least made an attempt to do so?
Well, because right now, when you look at this Philadelphia 76er team, they're playing agenda-free basketball, and they look like a family on the defensive end and the offensive end. You have guys being stars in their role. By the way, Joel Embiid is looking like the MVP, like he's on the verge of winning it. Ben Simmons is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. You have Danny Green, who's knocking down three-point shots, and then again, Steph Curry. Everybody want to talk about how he could shoot the lights out, but it's more to his game than just that. And when you look at the Philadelphia 76ers bench, they have more depth than the Brooklyn Nets. Okay. And I'm here to tell you, Stephen A., we cannot trust Kyrie Irving.
That's where I'm going.
We're only 11 games in. Okay, go ahead.
That's where I'm going with it. I was going to ask you about that. Talk to me about Kyrie Irving. Talk to me about Kyrie Irving being out for personal reasons. He's missed the last 5 games. How should we be feeling about Kyrie Irving right now? How should the Nets be feeling about Kyrie Irving right now, especially since they just acquired James Harden?
They should be very, very worried about Kyrie Irving. And I think this is part of the fact that the Nets actually went on ahead and pushed the trade because they do have concerns about Kyrie Irving. Because if you're 10 or 11 games into the season and Kyrie just decides to go MIA, who's the hell to tell you that he's not going to do that come first round of the playoffs? This guy is unpredictable. You never know what he's thinking. And Kyrie is a major concern, but I think they got James Harden part of the insurance policy.
Based on what Kyrie Irving has done thus far, Kendrick Perkins, I could easily make him a part of this next segment coming up, but I won't. You know what time it is.